Hi friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If it's not your first time here, thank you so much for coming back. And if it is your first time, thank you for clicking on this video. My name's Fee and I post weekly videos about my new life here in the Netherlands from the United States. So guys, as the title of the video suggests, I'll be talking about the hard truths of life here in the Netherlands as an immigrant. Now, I'd like to point out that the things that I'll be talking about are not necessarily exclusive to the Netherlands. However, because that is where we moved to, then that's where my reference point will be to. But I believe the points that I'll be talking about can be experienced by anyone moving to a new country. So in this video, I'm not going to be talking about the little annoyances, like maybe stores not being open 24 hours or stores being closed on Sunday. Here, I'm talking about the deeper things, the things that can keep you up at night, the things that can cause you anxiety when you move to a new country. Before I even start, I'd like to acknowledge that not everyone's experience moving abroad is the same. I mean, there are students here, there are people who've moved on their own, there are people who've moved with a partner, you even have people who are fleeing their own country and have moved here, so they'll be here forever. So your experiences may not align with mine, and that's totally fine. And just because we've made this big move, and I absolutely love it here, it doesn't mean that every day is rainbows and tulips. So you guys know how we do it here. Go ahead and get comfortable, get yourself your favorite drink, and we'll get right into it. So the first thing I'd like to talk about, and this is something that I found out right after the honeymoon period of moving to the Netherlands was over, is that regular life problems take on a whole new form and are much bigger when you're in a foreign land with a foreign culture and a foreign language. Especially because we moved during the pandemic, it was the hard realization that if I had a death in the family, then I wouldn't be home to support my family members, and they also wouldn't be here to support me with whatever I needed. We're about an 8.5 to 9 hour flight from home, so not only is it far away, but it's also expensive. But there's always been that option that if something is going on, then you can just get on a flight and go home. However, this isn't something that we could actually do during the height of the pandemic. And so I think this aggravated that feeling of that if something was to go very wrong, there's absolutely nothing I could do about it. And so it's stressful because things like death are already so hard to deal with, but when you're so far away from home, it makes it that much harder. The next thing is that even something when we've been talking about really deciding if we want to be in the Netherlands long term, and we've discussed possibly buying a house, and that becomes a whole new ballgame. I mean, it's already a whole new ballgame if we're doing it in the US, but all of a sudden you're trying to find out how does it work? Things we would have never thought about before if we were buying a home in the US, or we would have had to think about much later, we have to think about earlier here. So, things like if we were not here, what would happen to the house? Who would the property go to? All of those laws are completely different in the Netherlands than they are in the US. So all those things that I'd possibly have to research in the US have an added level of stress to them. Another thing is that I sometimes feel like the real me does not come across. And obviously because we want to be here long term, I want to thrive. I want people to know the real me. I want to be able to tell jokes. I want my personality to come across. And I feel like even when I fully learn to speak Dutch, it may not be the same. If you guys can't already tell, I'm an extrovert. I love to tell jokes. I love interacting with new people. But I feel like when I meet new folks here in the Netherlands, then I'm a little reserved version of myself. I'm a little bit shy, which I have never been, and I'm just not 100% myself. And I think that's because I can be straightforward in English, but sometimes things or tones are different. So I never want to say it in a way that offends anyone or rude. And because of this, I feel like I'm always going to be an outsider. And being that I'm an emotional person that loves connecting with other people, I sometimes worry if people are ever going to get to know the real me. The next one is that it's difficult to make friends. And I want to point out, like I mentioned in the beginning, these points are definitely not exclusive to the Netherlands. This is something that anyone who's moved to a new country will experience. With me moving to the Netherlands as an adult and not a university student, for example, it's very hard to make friends. And I feel like the Dutch start to make their friend groups when they're very young from grade school, and those friend groups only solidify as they get older. And so in as much as I've made some wonderful friends here in the Netherlands, it feels like I'm always going to be on the outside of those circles. And so these points that I discuss are not to scare anyone from moving to the Netherlands or any other country that you may be thinking about moving to. It's just basically me shining a light on the realities of moving to a new country and some of the experiences that you may face as well. And as always, I invite you guys to leave comments, maybe about things that you found challenging when you moved to a new country. And for my Dutch subscribers, maybe you can provide tips or tricks for people that are looking to move here to the Netherlands. As always, thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, doei!